Hey, good morning. It is Patrick Lovell, Truth Bomb, riffing on Tuesday, April 2nd at approximately 10:30 a.m. my time. And man, was I compelled to record an April Fool's Day Truth Bomb riff. And did I say this is the 490th episode? That's important because I need to start logging these in the order that I'm recording them, because I'm going to start referencing those, particularly in the last week, that I hope that you'll find the time to listen to if you're on the fence about anything. But I uh, I was, you know, basically I was thinking yesterday that I wanted to record a April Fool's truth bomb, and just be like celebrating the glory of the integrity of the United States and the courage of the American people and the honesty of its businesses and the fact that no man or woman is above the law, that our judiciary acts with absolute integrity, that our markets are completely solid, that only the best rise to the top, that everything in the United States is fair, and that we are indeed the shining city on the hill, and the sort of flag that all of humanity should look towards to be able to understand how to live their own society in a way that is the best execution of humanity. And then I was like, April Fools! I mean, every single moment of every day, we're reminded of what a shit show our country is in the midst of. And, right before I hit record on this, I looked at X, and I was about to, I was just actually seeing how much longer I'm going to be in X jail for my supposed violation of their incitement to violence rules, because of something that Elon Musk did that I'll go into momentarily. And I have throughout several truth bombs, and I'll reference it now. I think episode 486. I kind of laid out what happened to me and so forth. But anyway, I've been, you know, um, canceled from X for the last 6 days, and I have, as of this recording, 13 hours to go. And the reason that's important is because I do get seen through posting on X. It's not a perfect system, and unfortunately, I got to dance with the devil to be seen and heard. And it's ridiculous because of the information that I have and what I'm trying to get you to understand and try to get you to come on board and drop everything you're doing to go, my God, this guy has been telling me the truth the whole time and is the only one who's got the answers that actually can turn everything that we're all in the midst of right side up and actually clean up the corruption that is destroying us. And that's completely legit. I know exactly what to do and how to do it because I've got all of the answers that the entire system of our government and our insane media has hidden from us. Last night I was just kind of relaxing, and I was watching some stuff to try to escape everything that I'm completely absorbed with every day. And I decided to watch Wonka, this really fabulous remake of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Machine, or whatever that original title was, film that I grew up, watching as a child, that I absolutely was enamored with, Willy Wonka. And it was played by the same guy that is in Dune, Timothy Chalamet. Magnificent actor. I was so impressed with his performance, but this isn't me critiquing or giving you a review of Wonka so much as to just underscore that its theme and everything that it was in the midst of is a reflection of what it is that I'm revealing to you. And in Wonka, effectively, he has to go up against the monopolies of chocolate that use sabotage and all sorts of underhanded, cruel methods to suborn or suppress or oppress a guy who, in this character, has the answers and the solutions and, quite frankly, the product that could be wildly successful if he wasn't sabotaged. And in the process, you discover, again, it's a child's film, But this is in popular culture to reveal that the protagonists of this story, or I should say the antagonists, are using the power of the purse to buy the cops, to buy the judges, to buy the actual priesthood in all manner, shape, or form of power to do their bidding, which collectively it's called corruption. And again, I'll mark them off again. They bought the cops, they bought the judges, they bought the um, lawyers and the accountants and the entire systemology of power to corrupt the system. Now, interestingly enough, in episode 487, I do this incredible interview with the foremost expert of Donald Trump, a gentleman by the name of David K. Johnston. He's frequently on CNN and MSNBC and Democracy Now! And all sorts of other platforms of credibility. And this gentleman has written books going back to 1987 on Donald Trump and corruption. And he's an incredible expert and an investigative journalist that has revealed for decades and decades and decades of Trump's behavior paralleling the bad guys in Wonka and the methodology of doing so. Except in the case of Donald Trump, the way that both William K. Black and David K. Johnston frame him is like literally at best a D plus fraudster. Donald Trump is so pathetically stupid that it's unbelievable that he hasn't been taken down time and time and time again. But why hasn't he? Might it be a little bit of a connection to the parallel of Wonka's story? Fictional depiction of popular culture? Maybe, but much more so. I encourage you to check out episode 487 and spread it and share it. It's one of those things that should be on every thread that involves Rachel Maddow, to be honest with you, because it was David K. Johnston that brought the revelations of all manner, shape, or form of Donald Trump's tax evasion to MSNBC initially, that corresponded with his work with the New York Times. And by the way, David K. Johnston was also a journalist at the New York Times, is as prestigious as it gets. And when I talked to him, I just was befuddled because I keep thinking to myself, and I continue to hit the rewind in my mind of the last 30 years of my life. And we knew about everything every step of the way, except for really ultimately what it is that I reveal to you, which I'll get to in a minute. But right after I watched Wonka, I was doing some channel surfing and I ended up on this new Alex Jones documentary about the Sandy Hook families and everything that he was ultimately sued for in the largest defamation settlement conviction in the history of the United States. And I was watching this. It was just incredible to me because I remember when Alex Jones actually, I guess, got on my radar. And this was right around the time after 9/11, during the invasion of Iraq. And he was out there saying there was no weapons of mass destruction. And it was a big deal for him. And he started to build an audience. And I started to, at that time, I was ready for the United States to respond to 9/11 in a massive way. And I wasn't really as interested as I would later become in the what now is what we all accept as truth, that the United States lied to the United Nations about weapons of mass destruction to justify the invasion of Iraq after 9/11. And Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. And so Alex Jones was doing his Alex Jones thing and screaming from the top of his lungs that it was a lie. And he started to gather audience. And people started to go, who is this guy telling us things that we're not hearing from mainstream media, but we're somewhat thoughtful of? especially those who are anti-war. And it was interesting because when I think of Alex Jones, the last thing I associate him with are, like, let's say, peacenik anti-war protesters and that sort of thing, who, in previous eras of the United States, such as the 60s, might be referred to as hippies. I mean, obviously Alex's Jones is far from that as it gets. I guess if we were going to try to characterize Alex Jones, it's more of kind of like this libertarian, I don't know, kind of reminds me of a preacher to an extent, right? Very similar. In fact, that might be the whole point. But so Alex Jones was able to, basically get on a national stage, and he started, really selling this notion that the elites are lying to us, that the system itself, that mainstream media, that everything that we depend on in the institutions are lying to us. And then Sandy Hook happened, and he went off the deep end. And this documentary does a really great job documenting all of the time periods of how this lie manifested from Alex Jones. And what I found fascinating from it was that lies beget lies. And it reminds me of my favorite scene in one of the final episodes of the final season of Game of Thrones, when Jon Snow gets all of the great powers together and basically doesn't bend the knee, and he's asked later by both Tyrion Lannister and Daenerys Targaryen why he didn't just lie for the moment, because it would have helped them in the short run. And he said, look, when everybody lies, all you get are better and better lies and no solutions, and that doesn't serve anybody. I mean, that was a shortcut. It wasn't verbatim, and I kind of butchered it, but you get the intent. And that's where I've always come from. But in terms of Alex Jones, it was like, he went from this, like, being in the right space, even though the guy's not an investigative journalist by any stretch. In fact, I saw in his testimony while it was happening with the defamation suit with the families, the Sandy Hook families, that he had stated that his methodology was to basically every day he'd read something at night every evening for like maybe 20 minutes to an hour, and then that would set up what he would talk about for the next 4 hours the next day. Alex Jones was never an expert in anything. He never understood anything. He was a reactionary who had a personality, who had this sort of, thing that would work in elementary school or junior high school where people might be drawn to it. And he'd talk about the things of the day in a way that he wanted to connect with people that were like him, people who took shortcuts, people who don't understand systems, but yet know that something's wrong. And so Alex Jones would exploit something that he actually had some credibility in, AKA weapons of mass destruction and the invasion of Iraq, and all things at that time, the Bush administration, which was, a massive deception racket that was off the heels of possibly the most spectacular, what I think, deceptive, um, well, 9/11 was real. What happened in the aftermath that led to weapons of mass destruction, our invasion of Iraq, and everything else is piecemeal to whatever Saudi's role was, whatever the powers that be, what Alex Jones would call the elites, the Dick Cheneys of the world, the fossil fuel industry, the military industrial complex, Wall Street, all of those sectors, kind of going back to Willy Wonka's parallel, that you've got to tie up the judges and the attorneys and the accountants and quite frankly, the media. And, once you get all of those sort of vectors of power, which if you watch episode 487 with William K. Black and David K. Johnson, they talk about predatory vectors, which are everything I just named, which is just quite extraordinary. But Alex Jones discovered that his audience was reacting to hyper paranoia. And because he's from Texas and I'm from Texas, I'm from Austin, I've known about, the nature of, the Second Amendment and everything that we've been in the midst of for literally 30 years. I think something on the order of 40,000 Americans die a year from handgun violence. And, of course, we all know this has been an issue forever, but because of this paranoia that the government's coming to take their guns, this lunatic fringe and this paranoid group of people who don't understand how things work knew that they were being lied to And then they responded in incredibly insane and extreme ways, starting with the Sandy Hook massacre. And what this film delivered that Alex Jones and his compatriots continued to do relentlessly was so nauseating, and so it just made me sick to my stomach. And I thought to myself, if I was in the position of some of those parents who lost their children or held their children with a bullet hole in their head and bleeding and dying in their hands and being powerless to do anything about it, only to have these idiots come at me relentlessly for years telling me that I lied. I think I don't want to even imagine what I would do in a situation like that. At first, the councils, the police, the fire chief, all of these entities in um, Connecticut, where Sandy Hook took place, and I can't think of the name of the town where it took place, but um, they were so aghast at these accusations, they just remained silent. And they didn't fight back, and they didn't just blow these guys out of the water. They just were like, these people are so idiotic and so grotesque and so nauseating that there's no way anybody's going to buy what they're doing. So they thought silence was the best remedy. Meanwhile, that only added fuel to this insanity and gave oxygen to Alex Jones's paranoia. And so they would lie over and over, and they would target family members over and over and over, and they would destroy their credibility. And then ultimately, they would desecrate the memory of those innocent children slaughtered by a mad kid that got weapons grade, guns to be able to slaughter children that had no defense. And these people are calling, I mean, the family members liars. It was insane. The whole thing for 10 years was insane, but it's illegal. It's called defamation. Yes, we have free speech in this country. You hear the world's richest man who got most of his wealth through the theft, and not intentionally because he didn't create the situation that I revealed, but as a benefactor to the answers that I have. But I'll get into that. But he's created X, a supposed free speech platform that he censored me nonstop. And then also he used a sort of circular logic to basically suppress and censor me, and really hold me in contempt for inciting violence when I did nothing of the sort, in this gymnastics monstrosity of lies, not too dissimilar. I mean, way the methodology is the same. Obviously, the level, the degree of the crime, which it is, is slightly different, but it's the same concept. It's for these guys on the right. You've heard me say this in many of my truth bombs before. The methodology is lie, deny, switch the blame, and implicate. It becomes a business model. I literally watched this documentary last night about Alex Jones and the Sandy Hook families and the defamation suit that led to $1 billion fine that he hasn't paid, which is incredible. But it was all demonstrated by the intent of lying to sell product because people were responding to it, and he got larger and larger audiences, and they did corollaries through algorithms and everything else that during peak listening times and their cell times of different vitamins and everything else were correlating to the most insane, monstrous desecration of the Sandy Hook families through these lies that they were perpetuating that would then be picked up by people that they interviewed in this documentary that seem to be everywhere in MAGA. I mean, they have this one white woman who has a cleaning business who fancied herself an expert in blood removal because she cleans up buildings. And she was just so disgusting and so gross. She looked like a troll. She looked like these characters in this Wonka film who were there to hold down the children, the innocent children, because they were diabolical, criminal part of the criminal apparatus in this vector of predation. I mean, just the fictional aspect of what Wonka was displaying is not too dissimilar to what happens in the real world. And what's insane is that you have Alex Jones exploiting the real lie of the system that perpetuated this ginormous war in Iraq and 20 years of supposed war on terrorism that has truly only benefited the military contractors and had no end, because we never went after the people that attacked us, nor do we actually have the answers. But that provided the paranoia, the hostility, this sort of derangement syndrome with millions and millions of Americans who hear somebody like Alex Jones bloviate this stuff and they're drawn to it like flies to shit. And again, it was illegal. It's not free speech. But here's the thing. You've got to understand that the reason so many people are drawn to this sort of behavior is because they've gotten crushed in the real world. Now, I can only imagine if you were to break down, like, I don't know, the percentages of who does what, when, and how. Some are just liars. Some are there to exploit it. Some are there, the part of their churches. They know that these are people in their community that they can take advantage of. Others are just people that are working around the clock that don't have any answers to anything. And they're just like, somebody else did it. There's somebody hiding in the showers. And, oh, yeah, I read my Bible, so it must be the devil must be on the other side. Oh, it's the Clintons, right? And Pizzagate and all of this other stuff, which is another version of all of these things. But, I mean, I literally saw, and they demonstrated brilliantly in this documentary that, you know, as this gymnast freak Alex Jones would go from 1 minute, you know, acting, you know, behind the scenes, like whispering to the families, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean any of this. I believe you. I know that this didn't happen. And I made some wrong choices too. Then playing to his audience and then literally being on the stand, answering questions by the plaintiffs for the families and denying all of the things that they had asked for, discovery, emails, text, all of these other things, while at the same time claiming that it's a witch hunt, while at the same time, you know, claiming that his free speech is being suppressed by this cabal of a corrupt judge, corrupt attorneys, corrupt accountants, corrupt media. But in this case, he's the one who's lying ad nauseum. And in fact, so much so that he literally would get up on the stand, and I remember this as this was happening last year, and he would start talking about his product. He was selling his product while he was answering these questions about desecrating the memory of these children. And it always reminded me of what's happened to Jewish people through blood libel. Yeah, there's always been this thing for literally 1,000 years where it's like the Jews were, you know, the story of Jewish people sucking the blood of innocent Christian children spread around churches all over Europe. And it's called blood libel. And it led to the persecution of Jews that led to millions of deaths and then ultimately the Holocaust and millions of more deaths. But it's like their lives didn't matter. They were subhuman. In fact, there was a moment that just made my blood boil last night when people who listened to Alex Jones literally went to Connecticut, found the grave. They wanted to exhume the graves of these children, and they urinated on the graves of these children that were massacred at Sandy Hook because they thought it was a lie, or they're just disgusting and grotesque. But we humans have a side of us that turns us into demons, hyenas, filthy animal scum, parasites, worms, whatever the case is, in the worst possible capacity of the experience. And they do that when they're lied to and they buy the lie. And again, it's not free speech. It's against the law. So here are the exceptions to free speech. I mean, you can just look it up yourself, but it's really simple. I mean, as we all know, I'm talking about defamation, but let's just go through a couple of different things that when free speech isn't protected by the Constitution. So defamation is one. And surprisingly, hate speech is not, right? Unless it gets tied into some of these other elements that I'm going to reveal to you, of which, of course, one was held against me by Elon Musk this last week. But I found this to be one of the most interesting aspects of free speech that's not protected. Misstatements of fact, false statements of fact, fraud, lies, perjury, those are not protected. Those are illegal. And moving forward, speech by others, you can't do incitement to violence. You can't do incitement to other aspects. You can't threaten the president of the United States, which of course Donald Trump just did this past week. That is not protected in the Constitution. That is not protected by free speech. That's illegal. And why isn't, I know that Trump has been gagged in these threats, very similar to what I just mentioned because of what Alex Jones does, which is the exact same thing that Donald Trump does. Is that any wonder why the two, found each other? And of course, that's another aspect of predation, when people can see what other people are doing and they realize they're playing the same game, so they're drawn together, and they can use each other. And that's the relationship between Donald Trump and Alex Jones. And he got gagged. Donald Trump got gagged by threatening having the family members of the judge, which was just trending on X, Judge Mangione, I think her name is, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But you can't basically lie for profit. That's fraud, okay? And deceptive acts and practices is not protected. I've always thought of the example that you can't go into a crowded theater and yell fire to create panic, because obviously that wasn't free speech. That's going to incite a reaction that leads to all sorts of significant problems, be it injury or worse. And I'm trying to look for the other easy aspects of it. Pornography is not protected, free speech. You can't, it's just common sense in many of these situations. You just can't lie to defame somebody else. And when you do, it's libel, and you can be held accountable for defamation and libel. And, in this movie, of course, it just sets up all of the elements that led to Alex Jones being throttled for $1 billion. And everything that he did, I see probably 1,000 times an hour on X. X is the ultimate platform. It's beyond what the Russians were able to do with the GRU and the hate bot trolls in the 2016 election, through all of these types of vectors who are so paranoid and so just naturally oriented towards hate, that ultimately that's what X is doing. But it's the only place that people are engaged in any sort of ramification of free speech, because everything else has been suppressed on all of the other social media platforms. So that's where I've had most of my sort of gains. And I don't know, people having access to get to other people, even though I've been doing this for now 490 truth bombs that have literally only garnered 961 subscribers, when with the information I have, should be somewhere north of 10 million at this stage of the game. But I'm being censored, I'm being suppressed, while the lies are being amplified. Because, like Winston Churchill said, a lie can travel around the world 4 times before the truth gets its pants on. In fact, all of the work that we have created, that I have created, that I've gone to the ends of the earth and back, spending millions of dollars to reveal the largest criminal conspiracy and cover up in history, that is the power that has complete control of everything, that is using all of these other methods of deception to manipulate everybody else. I'm offering you that truth for free, because all the American people buy our lies. And you can find that at www.thecon.tv. You can find the new Untouchables, and you can find all of my 490 truth bombs. But I wanted to go to a couple of other things before I close this up today. Jesus Christ. You've got to watch this documentary on HBO. It's extraordinary to see these families and what they had to endure. And again, I got to use this word desecration. It's just unbelievable what Alex Jones and the millions of people have bought into, that these people who have experienced the most horrific loss that imaginable, and they have been targeted. by people who call them liars and urinate on their children's graves. What should happen to them? God, I hope there's a hell. I really do. I hope these guys go to hell for eternity and rot in hell. I do. That's not enough for life. These guys are growing like cancer. They're metastasizing like an epidemic because people are remaining silent and not fighting the system that is enabling this to overcome everything. And just think about what Donald Trump has been in the midst of for the last, I don't know, 30 years versus the last 48 hours. So last night he came up with a $175 million bond from a company that was an insurance company that was, I think, 31 out of the ones that they called out of Los Angeles with this guy, billionaire who made all of his money. His name's Don Hankey on, how about this, subprime auto loans in California. So yeah, he delivered, made good for Donald Trump's bonds, so he wouldn't have his real estate assets taken by the state of New York, which was reduced from 450 million down to 175 million, which is a problem in its own right. But ultimately, the Don came up with this money supposedly on the heels of, also, don't forget that Truth Social last Friday ballooned up on valuations where, I don't know, I think it's in the whole 50 million a year. And I think they have 20 million in advertising revenue, and somehow the valuations got up to like $8 billion, which is just a front and a facade for both a pump and dump to the believers. But it's ways that people like Saudi and big time money can like get money through the stock to Truth Social, through Truth Social to Donald Trump, which is another sort of myriad of these schemes and these games that people with money can do that hide behind attorneys and accountants and judges and vectors of deception and all sorts of other things, not too dissimilar to what Wonka does in this commercial. Excuse me, this fictional sort of depiction in a lovely way compared to what it is that I've been revealing to you, which is that it's like comparing, I don't know, this state of Connecticut to the entire solar system. The difference of what we have in terms of the immensity of what it is that I'm revealing to you. And Truth Social plummeted yesterday. Like I said in one of my truth bombs, I think it was 486. I said if I was going to, I was kind of doing the valuation on Truth Social, and I was like, Jesus, I got to short the stock. In fact, it turns out that it was the most shorted stock yesterday in trading. And yeah, God, could you imagine if it's going down like gangbusters today? I mean, it's such an absolutely grotesque situation that the freedoms that are allowed by the free market and all of these things can also be simultaneously used for criminal activity and corruption without the actual regulation in place and those that are actually looking into scenarios. You can't prevent what I just revealed to you is illegal, especially by way of things that are exempt from free speech, i.e. fraud. You can't lie and deceive. Deceptive acts and practices are illegal. It's not free speech. You go to jail for this. There are degrees of their differences, and you can be held up for libel or you can go to jail on a felony. And that's the whole situation with Trump and these 91 indictments. And, I keep thinking to myself, especially because when I was watching this last night and they had, the case was held in Austin, and the judge was hilarious. Some of the reactions that the judge had to because she didn't watch Alex Jones' show, but Alex Jones would sit in front of her, and here was the ultimate lie that he got nailed on. He said that he didn't have the text that said anything about what he knew was a lie regarding Sandy Hook and what they were putting on air and everything else. The guy was lying nonstop, and this stupid idiot attorney for Alex Jones gave up all the data a week before. And so the attorneys, for the families, were able to obtain all of the text that Alex Jones said he never was involved with. And it busted his ass stone cold. And it was just like, in the same time period that the judges got this guy dead to rights, that the attorneys, the plaintiffs have got this guy dead to rights, he's selling and hawking his the guy's insane. He's hawking his vitamins. I mean, he's literally like this autistic guy, and he can't think about anything. He's just like, I'm going to lie, sell vitamins, lie more. And the judge said, this isn't your show. This is a courtroom. Shut your freaking mouth. I'm gonna give you a gag order. And so she had to wrestle control of the courtroom from Alex Jones in a situation that was almost parallel to what we're seeing with Donald Trump. And what was Donald Trump's situation here with in the gag orders? And I got to find the name of the judge that he was that he just got muzzled by. But obviously, he never shuts up, and he continues to make these cases, and he's trying to make it where he's trying to I don't know, threaten the judge's daughter in this particular case. It's just unbelievable. Come on, I'm looking at the front page of the New York Times. Where is Trump this morning? Wow, he's not even there. I thought I had him up. I'll have to go to something else. Maybe I'll have to go to Twitter. let's see if it's trending on Twitter. The judge, and her name is eluding me at the moment. Let's take a look. Let's see what's trending at the moment. Judge Mershon, how about that? Right at the top, trending. It wasn't on the front page of the New York Times this morning, but it was last night. But also, Truth Social is trending. I can only imagine that's about it just taking a nose dive. And let's see what else. Obviously, Judge Mershon and Donald Trump and so forth. I mean, you can obviously sometimes that there's more relevance, unfortunately, on X, but it's just the information that you're getting. But when I was watching this case take shape in Austin, that's where I'm from. And, I'm thinking, I love Austin. I mean, it's one of the coolest cities in the United States. It always is something close to my heart, not to mention I was born there. But, my God, Elon Musk is there, Joe Rogan and Alex Jones, and just a whole potpourri of smart people in a lot of other places. But it's a really dynamic place. But who are all those guys? What are they doing? What are they selling? They're doing the exact same thing that Alex Jones is doing and Donald Trump are doing. They're selling everybody's paranoia while doing this backdoor scenario with the guys that are corrupt behind the scenes to be able to, try to make a run at, the second Confederacy through another white supremacist revolution. And all these guys are getting huge eyeballs because that's where a lot of that energy is on that side. And they know how to exploit it, and they're doing it for themselves. And it's not about free speech. It's about Elon Musk's freedom from regulation to say and do whatever he wants through propaganda that's going to subvert the laws of the Constitution, especially as it relates to libel and defamation, which happens all over the place. In fact, I had mentioned this in Truth Bomb 488.5. Last week, 60 Minutes was trending for a hot second because they were doing this deep dive on all things X, and all of a sudden it disappeared right before my eyes, right as I was actually watching the segment on 60 Minutes itself. Do you think that was Elon Musk making a phone call to his engineers saying, suppress, suppress, suppress? Yeah, that has nothing to do with free speech. That has everything to do with him manipulating everything just like free markets so that a billionaire can Weisenheimer everybody and extract from everybody, which has been our economy for a very long time. And so what does this all have to do with, what it is that I am and who I am and what I'm doing and why I matter and everything else? Guys, Rachel Maddow again, and Lawrence O'Donnell using the best minds in constitutional law, including Andrew Weissman and Lawrence Tribe and Neil Cotier and some of these other guys. They're revealing to you every day, 24/7, nonstop, how Donald Trump defrauded the United States using deceptive acts and practices to create a coup d'etat, to steal the election using documentation fraud, not to mention the civil fraud trial of hyperinflating assets so that he got better deals on loans, which was also illegal, as we just saw from the civil fraud trial, and then everything else he's doing in a racketeering enterprise to basically, shall we say, be the Antichrist, while peddling tennis shoes and Bibles that these freaking zombies of the apocalypse are buying incessantly. Do you understand what we're in the midst of in context to what Rachel Maddow and all of these other guys are trying to sell you? That, oh my God, Donald Trump is literally the ultimate villain to the United States, given all things what's happening in Ukraine, given all things that his relationship with Vladimir Putin and Saudi. Like, not everybody on Wall Street is doing the exact same thing, or entertainment, or anybody who's got big money. They're all playing ball with Saudi, which is a religious theocracy, which cuts off the head of anybody who gets it this way. And that's who we're going to be investing with nonstop. While, oh yeah, by the way, a lot of the heads of these companies that are involved with these guys that were deeply involved with 9/11, whether it is Wall Street, or private equity or hedge funds, or fossil fuel companies or military industrial complex. Everybody is playing ball. And the religious theocracy thing of Saudi Arabia, what do you think these right-wing Christian zealots are all about in what is ultimately the New World Order that Alex Jones is all about? Alex Jones is sold against the New World Order and globalism and elites and everybody that are Wall Street, the military industrial complex, and fossil fuel, and ultimately this paradigm of power that is the revolving door of Wall Street and all of our top law firms and accounting firms, which are vectors of predation that I continue to reveal to you. But ultimately, in the story that I am revealing to you, is how tens of millions of people were set up with deceptive acts and practices, using documentation fraud to get liars loans approved, to create liars underwriting scenarios, and ultimately that went into mortgage-backed securities that were these trusts of lying to the tune of millions that then became collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps and derivatives that spread around the world like global contagion that destroyed the world because of this unbelievable gambling syndicate. And all of this stuff is a casino, and yet it's who's in charge. Who is the money? The house never fails, right? Well, supposedly in capitalism, it's about risk reward, but that's not what we're in the midst of. What we're in the midst of is the Federal Reserve provides free money, tens of trillions of dollars, to these con artists that are destroying us, using the courts and the accountants and the attorneys to do it, but not just Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a red carpet reflection of everything. And yeah, he's parallel to Alex Jones, and they're playing the same game. And if you're somewhat of a Rachel Maddow fan, a college educated person who actually believes in the law and that you can't stomach that this guy is flouting the law and getting away with everything, and I'm talking about Donald Trump and Alex Jones and everybody else who's on that side of the equation, but ultimately that you're like, wait a second, Donald Trump, yeah, oh man, you can buy that he's guilty of being involved with a racketeering situation with vampire Rudolph Giuliani to steal the election through the electoral scheme, to use documentation fraud on the electoral college to steal the election. Yeah, you can buy that. You can buy that everybody invaded the in Congress, in this coup d'etat that was fomented by the right-wing supremacist ideology guys who would rather, go back to what? Making America great again, which is, the new Jim Crow. That's all about. And they've been there the whole time, but they're being animated and put into position to do dangerous things because billionaires are paying for it to be able to hide everything that I am revealing to you. And so what are you supposed to do? Especially if climate is your deal, or systemic racism in prison, or equality, or any number of things that matter to this country. It is in absolute turmoil right now, and we are in a downward death spiral, and I'm desperately trying to get the ailerons of the jumbo jet United States, and I'm trying to get control of it, and I'm trying to lift it out of this clouds of deception so that we can get rid of the zombie apocalypse hanging onto the wings trying to take us down. Because I've got the truth. I've got the truth of everything that the government hid from you that led to people like Alex Jones finding millions of people. Because yes, this was all baked into the sequence of the situation from the CEOs of Wall Street that have got to keep people on the debt treadmill, which is bondage, which is slavery. If you don't know how to manage your money and you get caught and trapped because you've got 3 jobs and you're just trying to keep your head afloat and you want to live in a house where you can raise your children and go to church and go to whatever your place of worship is and have a shot at the American dream. No, that's not what they've done. They've suppressed it. They kicked the legs out from underneath it because they control the law. They control the media. They control. Do I sound like Alex Jones? Except I'm not Alex Jones. I would never in a million years say that, Sandy Hook was a false flag operation. Maybe Alex Jones is a false flag operation in this whole nexus because of what I know the CIA has done. And what are your options? Listen, President Biden is monumentally better than Donald Trump, but he's still of for and by BlackRock. Biden, and if you've got issues, for example, with Hamas and Israel and everything else, my God, that's another conversation I could go off forever, and I don't want to talk forever. You're not listening. You don't understand what it is I'm trying to tell you. Sometimes I'm convoluted. Sometimes I don't have this scripted. Sometimes I'm just like trying to fit this in between everything else that I'm doing. But it's just like, my God, I've got this monumental truth that the United States government and the Department of Justice, the Federal Reserve, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the FBI, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, all of these attorneys generals of the United States failed to reveal. And how do I have all of this information? Because I spent $4.5 million because I've got an investor who believed in what I was doing, and I delivered it on behalf of the American people, and I lost everything in the process of it. And I'm still grinding because I want to get in the ring. I want to knock, dude. You know what? Hey, if somebody can get this to Joe Rogan and Dana White, I challenge Alex Jones to a fight in the ring, and I'll donate all the proceeds on a pay-per-view to all the families of Sandy Hook. Okay, first and foremost, I want to get in the ring with Tucker Carlson. I want to be able to see if my truth can overwhelm his truth. Like, a scene out of, I don't know, Moses, the battling fucking snakes or whatever. It's just like, they're all lying. Put me in the ring with the liars. I've got the truth. I know how to take it down. And what do you have to do? I had this woman the other day say to me, and she always has these, great comments, and she's very supportive and everything else. But at the same time, she's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm up to my ears. I've got people who need things from me. I'm on a limited, salary. And, I'm not going to move heaven and hell to be able to get you where you need to go, because I got my own shit. What am I supposed to do? You don't need to do anything but share me. That's the whole point, because I've already done the work. I've already moved heaven and hell. I've told you before, I was able to, on a budget of $4.5 million, go the distance to get all of the evidence, all of the whistleblowers, all of the entire case that reveals everything that I'm telling you, to reveal ultimately the $71 trillion truth and the largest corruption and cover up in history that never ended, that our entire system is in on, including the media. Nobody has done it. I've done it. You just need to support me. You need to get me through this insane bulwark of mud in people's ears and eyes, because they can't see, they can't hear, they can't speak. The truth is your salvation. I'm throwing you the lifeline of truth. And if you grab on it, I'll get you out of this cloudy, murky atmosphere to get you the ionosphere to where you can have clarity. It's everywhere, in every direction, every single day, over and over and over. And every single problem that has been vexing us for decades is attached to this, because everything is connected to money. Who is in control of the money? That's what I'm revealing to you. And the ones that are in control of the money provided tens of trillions of dollars illegally to corrupt enterprises. Why can't you hear me? Why can't you believe me? Why can't you save yourself with the information that I have? What is my vision? It's the Clean New Deal. What is the Clean New Deal going to do? It's going to create a new Glass-Steagall now. It's going to end Citizens United now. It's going to put all the people that know how to drive this ship, that have actual integrity, just like you want somebody who's trained to pilot the 747. Guess what, America? There's gazillions of people like that. They're just not in control because there's more people that believe Alex Jones or all the other liars. God, I'm in a good mood for the most part. I believe that we're going to break through. I believe that something's going to happen. But I just went off on this massive scream campaign because it's like, you're not listening. You don't understand what we're up against. This is murdering us. It has murdered the American dream. I've got all the answers at www.thecon.tv for free. I've done, the new Untouchables, which reveals another 20 hours of detailed information if you have to have details, or just believe me. Nobody else is going to do this. Robert F. Kennedy and why can't I think of her name? Kavanaugh? Oh, Jesus Christ. I may as well look it up. I don't have anything to. RFK's running mate is, because I did Nicole Shanahan. Nicole Shanahan, the 38-year-old defense attorney attorney in tech, who was married to the CEO of Google. She also slept with Elon Musk, and that's why he chose her, because she has access to a lot of money and she's good looking. And Robert F. Kennedy doesn't know the first thing about the corruption that he talks about. He talks about the CIA murdering his uncle. I think he's right, but at the same time, he doesn't know or is unaware or isn't willing to talk about it, because he also gets money from the same job. Because Sullivan and Cromwell, the law firm that created the CIA, was responsible for a huge part of saving and maybe involved with murdering the American dream. They saved the hyenas of finance that can control this country. RFK Jr. isn't an option. Joe Biden is up by and for BlackRock, and of course Donald Trump is the antichrist, leading us into oblivion. Our country was so much better than this, but we're all tools in the full circus because of social media and no bandwidth, and everybody having too much pressure to try to survive, and nobody understands what's going on. That's why I yelled. I'm pissed off that Alex Jones hasn't paid a dime to the families of Sandy Hook after 10 years of harassment, of desecrating the memories of their children, of targeting people who had their children murdered. How dare them? They need to feel pain like the pain they've caused for others. They need to suffer like the suffering they've caused others. Righteousness has to get above the madness of deception and diabolical betrayal. And it's everywhere. The lies are in control. We incentivize and reward liars. And then the law is used to go after the small guys. And unfortunately, target, and that's another part of predation. Our society is in disarray if your values and your actions aren't in alignment with your ideology. You're in disarray. That's what we are. I'm about freedom. I'm about liberty and justice for all. I'm about the integrity of the law. And we have to prevail. We have to triumph. I have to get tens of millions of you to believe me, to champion me. Because if you champion me, I can assure you I will champion you. And to all of you that are too busy and you can't do anything, you don't need to. I've already done it. I've done what nobody in history has ever done for the American people, for the American dream. I know who murdered the American dream. And failure is not an option. You've got to rise, roar, and revolt. This is the righteous grind. This is the clean new deal. When you have the truth, you're bulletproof. It's not rocket science. It's racketeering. Failure is not an option. Onwards and upwards.